The FDA list also said one child lost an eye and another required brain surgery after being hit in the skull.
Well, this particular doll began munching on 7-year-old Sarah Stevens' hair, right up to the scalp.
We need to talk about what really happened in the 80s. Behind every suburban front door was a collection of products so insanely dangerous that modern parents would call CPS on their own grandparents. You had them. Your neighbors had them, the stuff that smelled like chemicals and came with instructions nobody could read. And somehow, nobody talks about how we all survived playing with actual poison, real fire, and toys that shot sparks across shag carpets. These 25 deadly darlings are the dirty little secrets of American childhood, the stuff they don't want you to remember, but your burn marks never forgot. Lawn darts, jarts, the backyard game that could kill you. You remember the weight, cold, solid, with a sharp metal tip that made you feel like a knight, not a kid. The game was simple. Toss the dart into a plastic ring. But what actually happened? Near-death experiences at every barbecue. Jarts weren't toys. They were backyard missiles. You and your cousins would launch them overhead, cheering as they barely missed someone's foot or skull. When they hit the grass, thunk. When they hit a leg, scream. No safety labels, just consequences. Over 6,000 injuries and 3 child deaths later, the government finally banned them in 1988. But before that, they lived right next to your dad's chainsaw. Because in the 80s, danger didn't come with a warning. It came with a handle. Cabbage Patch Snacktime dolls, the doll that ate hair, fingers, and fear. It looked harmless, a sweet-faced doll that ate pretend snacks. But once that plastic French fry went in, it didn't stop, not for sleeves, ponytails, or fingers. The motorized mouth just kept grinding, with no off switch and no way to reverse. You'd hear the whir, then the scream. Some kids froze, others needed scissors. It was supposed to be holiday magic. Instead, it turned into a pastel nightmare. By 1997, after ER visits and parent panic, Mattel pulled them off shelves. But the Snacktime doll stuck in memory, part toy, part mechanical menace. And weirdly, some kids still loved it, maybe because it was the only doll that actually fought back. Sky Dancers, the toy that looked magical, until it attacked. You remember the thrill, pulling the string, watching that fairy launch into the air with sparkling wings and a perfect twirl. Sky Dancers felt like actual magic. They didn't just fly, they danced, spun, shimmered in the light like little princesses on a mission. But that mission was often straight into your face. The commercials never showed what happened next. You'd send one flying across the living room, and it would ricochet off a lamp, clip your brother's ear, and crash into the fish tank. These things had no flight control, just raw plastic power and unpredictable fury. Kids lost teeth. Lamps exploded. One even hit a fireplace and came back on fire. Between 1994 and 2000, the Consumer Product Safety Commission received over 170 injury reports. Broken teeth, scratched corneas, facial lacerations. They were yanked from shelves in 2000, but not before leaving their mark. Skip It, early models.
There's a counter on this ball, so try to beat your very best score. See if you can jump a whole lot more. Skip it, skip it.
The ankle whipper that left scars and bragging rights. You saw it in the commercials. Girls twirling in slow motion, rainbow socks, big hair bouncing, and that catchy jingle echoing in your brain. Skip it, skip it. But real life? It wasn't slow motion. It was a full-speed plastic ball of destruction whipping around your ankle like a medieval flail. The early versions of Skip It were brutal. If you mistimed the jump, it slammed into your shin with a crack that felt personal. If you did time it right, you still walked away with bruises. And the counter wheel? It dared you to go faster, to beat your record, even if it meant smashing your ankle into jelly. Playground battles broke out. Skirts flew, shoelaces got caught, and one kid even fractured her foot trying to beat her older sister's high score. But quitting wasn't an option. You weren't just playing, you were proving something. Eventually, newer models softened the impact. Super elastic bubble plastic. The toy that smelled like regret. You'd squeeze the goo from the little metal tube, rainbow-colored, sticky, and weirdly irresistible. You'd plop it onto the red straw, blow gently, and boom, a slow-growing bubble that shimmered like oil on water. It wasn't quite a balloon, it wasn't quite a soap bubble, it was something else, and it stank. The smell hit your nose first, sharp, chemical, like melted plastic mixed with permanent marker. You got a little lightheaded, maybe a little giggly, but who cared? You were making magic. You'd wave those weird plastic orbs around like a wizard until they popped and stuck to your face, your arm hair, or the family dog. What no one told you, this stuff was pure chemical chaos. It was made from polyvinyl acetate dissolved in acetone and ethyl acetate, which is science talk for don't breathe this. And kids? We were inhaling it. By the early 2000s, it quietly disappeared from shelves. No press conference, just gone. Lead paint, the quiet killer. Already on your walls. You didn't play with it, you lived inside it. Lead paint wasn't a toy or a gadget. It was the background of your entire childhood, lining your bedroom, your windowsills, your school's jungle gym. It looked normal, it felt safe, but it was quietly poisoning kids across America, one chipped flake at a time. You remember the dusty corners of the house, where the paint curled like old wallpaper. Some kids peeled it for fun, some kids ate it. You'd hear a cousin say, "Don't lick that," but no one really knew why. Turns out that why was brain damage, stunted growth, and long-term health risks. And the worst part? You couldn't see it coming. No explosions, no warning signs, just years of exposure, sitting in the very place you felt safest. By 1978, lead paint was officially banned in U.S. homes, but in the 80s, millions of families still lived with it, painted into corners, closets, and cribs. And for some of us, it's probably still under 3 coats of latex hiding in plain sight.
It's distinctive, with a bold, brilliant diamond. Masculine, unmistakably handsome.
Children's jewelry with lead, the pretty little thing that could poison you? It sparkled, it matched your outfit, and it cost less than a soda. Those plastic rings, glittery bangles, and clip-on earrings from the gumball machine were a rite of passage, tiny treasures for tiny humans. You'd pop one on and feel like royalty, but under the shine, toxic metal. In the 1980s and into the early 2000s, tons of cheap kids' jewelry, especially imports, were laced with lead-based metal. You didn't notice, of course. You were too busy pretending to be a princess or trading plastic rings with your best friend. But lead doesn't care about your imagination. It leaches, it transfers, it poisons, especially when kids chew on it or wear it day after day. It wasn't until 2006 that the Consumer Product Safety Commission started cracking down hard. Massive recalls followed, millions of items pulled from stores. But for a whole generation, that glittery plastic treasure chest came with a side of heavy metal, and not the rock and roll kind. Small parts in toys, the tiny pieces that caused big trouble. You never thought twice about it. A loose eye on a teddy bear, a tiny wheel from a plastic truck, Barbie shoes that vanished into the carpet forever. These little parts were just part of the mess until they became a medical emergency. Small parts were everywhere in 80s toys, and they were perfectly designed to get swallowed, or worse, lodged. You'd hear the horror stories. A sibling inhaled a Lego, a neighbor's toddler choked on a puzzle piece, and there you were, chewing the rubber antenna off your Transformers toy like it was bubble gum. Parents started carrying tweezers and flashlights like field medics. The phrase choking hazard wasn't common yet, but the ER visits were. Eventually, toy makers were forced to wise up. Safety regulations kicked in. Anything smaller than a ping-pong ball needed to come with a warning, or not be sold at all. But if you were a kid back then, your whole toy box was basically a minefield of plastic danger, and somehow that just made playtime feel a little more real. Talcum powder, asbestos, the softest thing that hid a silent threat. The scent is still in your memory, fresh, floral, safe. Your mom dusted it on you after every bath. The puff of powder in the air felt like love. It lived in every bathroom, tucked behind the toilet or perched near the sink in that smooth plastic bottle with the blue cap. But what they didn't tell you? That soft white cloud could carry asbestos, a known carcinogen. In the 80s, talcum powder was a symbol of cleanliness and care. You'd watch your grandma pat it onto her neck. You'd feel it settle onto your skin like a hug. But certain talc mines and certain batches were contaminated, and no one was testing for long-term consequences until it was far too late. By the early 2000s, the lawsuits started. Women diagnosed with ovarian cancer, families connecting dots they never thought to question.
Question is there asbestos in Johnson & Johnson's products? We believe and have always believed that there isn't.
Eventually, Johnson & Johnson pulled their talc-based powder from shelves entirely. It wasn't evil. It wasn't obvious. That's what made it so heartbreaking. The danger came disguised in tenderness.
Here's a shopping tip for smart toy shoppers. Playco. That's right, Playco, your best toy store.
Creative Playthings Gym, the playground set that took lives. It looked like the ultimate upgrade. A towering wooden jungle gym, ladders, beams, monkey bars, all in your own backyard. It felt like freedom. It felt like luxury. And if your family had one, every kid on the block showed up after school. But this wasn't just another swing set. It had a fatal flaw. The Creative Playthings Gym, popular in the late 70s and early 80s, had a suspended crossbeam, a thick, heavy bar that could slip out of place. And it did. Multiple times, kids were crushed. At least 6 deaths were reported before the company was forced to recall the structure. You didn't hear about it on TV. Maybe your parents caught wind of a flyer in the mail. But by then, millions had already been sold. For some families, this wasn't just a memory, it was a scar, a warning that even the most innocent-looking thing in the yard could turn into tragedy. It wasn't made to hurt anyone, but it did, and it changed the way parents looked at swing sets forever. Children's sleepwear with tris, the pajamas that came with a poison warning. They were soft, they were cute. Maybe yours had dinosaurs or dancing bears. Those polyester jammies were a bedtime staple, still warm from the dryer, with that unmistakable static cling that stuck to your legs. You'd crawl under the covers, feeling safe, loved, and perfectly tucked in. But those pajamas?
Has health advocates now calling on states to ban flame retardants in baby products.
They were coated in tris, a flame-retardant chemical designed to prevent fires and quietly linked to cancer. Tris wasn't some rare additive. It was in millions of kids' sleepwear sold in the 70s and early 80s, and no one said a word. Your parents bought it thinking they were keeping you safe. Meanwhile, the chemical was absorbing through your skin night after night. Chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. The hairspray that punched a hole in the sky, you can still smell it. That icy blast from the can, sharp, clean, and cold on the scalp. Hairspray, deodorant, air freshener, all of it had that distinct chemical chill. It was the scent of being ready for school, for prom, for your first mall job interview. But while you were locking in your bangs, you were also destroying the ozone layer. Most aerosol cans back then were powered by CFCs, Chlorofluorocarbons. They made everything spray like silk and rise straight into the atmosphere, where they ripped apart the ozone like termites. Scientists warned us. Then came the documentaries, then the guilt, and suddenly hairspray wasn't just about style. It was about global damage. In 1987, the world took action. The U.S. banned most CFCs in consumer products. New formulas hit shelves. Ozone-friendly became the new status symbol. But if you grew up in the 80s, you were practically raised on the stuff. Hair perm kits, harsh chemicals, the smell that lived in the bathroom for days. You remember the process like a ritual, the towel around your shoulders, the tiny pink rods snapping tight, and then that smell, chemical, sour, almost sweet, like rubber bands soaked in vinegar. Home perm kits were everywhere in the 80s. Kitchen counters turned into beauty salons. Your mom did hers first, then your aunt, then somehow you. The goal, big hair, the bigger, the better. But the price? Harsh chemicals that practically burned your scalp. You'd sit perfectly still while the solution cooked into your hair, praying it didn't drip into your eyes. The neutralizer came next, then the reveal, a frizzy, crunchy halo that felt like wire and pride mixed together. By the 90s, warnings started piling up. Scalp burns, hair loss, respiratory irritation. The products evolved, but the old-school perm kits quietly faded from store shelves. Fast food packaging and diet soda. We called it lunch. They called it a warning label. You remember the tray? Styrofoam burger box, shiny fries sleeve, maybe a Diet Coke sweating in your hand? It looked normal. It was normal. Every Saturday after Little League or church. Every weekday if you had cool parents. But that combo meal? A cocktail of hazards wrapped in branding. Those styrofoam clamshells? Made with polystyrene, a material later linked to environmental and health risks. Diet sodas? Packed with aspartame, a sugar substitute that sparked decades of health debates. And the fries? Let's just say they weren't fried in olive oil. In the 80s, fast food felt modern, futuristic. You didn't know what trans fats were. You just knew you could supersize for 39 cents. Schools gave out free coupons. Birthdays happened in ball pits, and nobody read the fine print.
I know that.
What, do you know that 2 scoops are enough to give a plump, juicy raisin to each captain of the Queen's Guard, all the girls on the Cranston High Cougarettes, and Boy Scout Troop 12?
That's a lot.
Food dyes, red number 2, etc. The brightest colors came with a warning label. You remember the reds, the kind that didn't exist in nature. Fruit roll-ups, cherry snow cones, off-brand cereal with marshmallows shaped like nothing found in biology. The colors were loud, neon, glowing, and absolutely everywhere. You'd eat red icing until your tongue changed color, pour orange punch that looked like antifreeze, and slurp blue slushies that probably could have doubled as car coolant. It was all fun until someone mentioned red number. In the 70s and 80s, food dye wasn't just decoration, it was identity. Every candy aisle screamed with artificial swagger. But then studies started trickling in, links to hyperactivity, cancer risks in lab rats. And suddenly, those rainbow treats didn't seem so sweet. Red number 2 was pulled in 1976. Other colors followed, swapped out, renamed, or reformulated. Disposable cameras and Polaroids. We captured memories, then threw out the chemicals. The excitement was instant. Crack open the plastic camera, wind the dial, snap the shot. No redo, no filter, no cloud backup. It was one-and-done magic. Birthday parties, school dances, awkward sleepovers, all frozen forever in 24 exposures. Polaroids were even faster. Push the button, watch the photo slide out like a paper tongue, and shake it like the commercials told you, even though that never helped. But what you didn't realize? Those fun little memory machines came loaded with chemicals, silver compounds, developing agents, and fixers that weren't exactly environmentally friendly. The film, packed with plastic, the flash units, landfill fire hazards. We snapped and tossed like it didn't matter. Millions of disposable cameras ended up in trash bags, leaking chemicals and metal into the earth. Fire extinguishers with Halon 1211. Even the life-saving tools were toxic. It was the one thing in the house you hoped you'd never need, that red cylinder hanging on the wall or tucked under the sink. the fire extinguisher, the hero, the last defense against kitchen chaos. But in the 80s, many of them were filled with Halon 1211, a gas that knocked down flames fast, and then quietly damaged the ozone layer like a slow leak in the sky. It worked like magic. No white cloud, no residue, just poof, fire gone. Firefighters loved it. Schools installed them. Even airplanes carried them on board. What they didn't know? Halon stuck around. It floated up into the atmosphere and stayed there, breaking apart ozone molecules like bubble wrap. By the 90s, the global panic over CFCs and ozone depletion reached Halon, too. It was banned in new extinguishers, phased out, replaced. But for a while, even the thing meant to save your life was slowly wrecking the planet. Funny how the safety tools had their own warning labels, just a few decades too late. Formaldehyde in glue, that new furniture smell, was a chemical warning sign. You remember it, that sharp, fresh scent when the new dresser came home, or when Dad built shelves in the garage and the whole house smelled like productivity. It was part of growing up, the smell of plywood, particle board, and proud DIY projects. But that smell? That was formaldehyde, a volatile chemical used in glues, adhesives, and pressed wood products. It didn't just stink. It lingered, it off-gassed. It seeped into the air you breathed every single day, and nobody questioned it. Your crib probably had it, your school desks, the kitchen cabinets, even the dollhouse your aunt gave you for Christmas. Later, studies started connecting dots. Respiratory problems, allergic reactions, even long-term cancer risks. Formaldehyde became the quiet ghost in millions of American homes, baked into the wood, woven into insulation, hidden in the walls. Regulations came eventually. Safer glues, stricter limits, Urea-Formaldehyde foam insulation, the warmth that came with a side of headaches. If your house was built or insulated in the late 70s or early 80s, chances are you were living with it, even if you never saw it. Urea-Formaldehyde foam insulation, or UFFI, was the miracle material of its time. Cheap, easy to spray, great for trapping heat. Contractors would fill your walls with it like whipped cream, expanding foam that hardened behind the drywall. And you stayed warm. The electric bill went down. Everything seemed fine. Until the headache started, the coughing, the burning eyes. UFI didn't just insulate, it off-gassed, releasing formaldehyde into the air day after day. Entire families were getting sick inside homes that were supposed to be upgraded. The solution was worse than the problem. Eventually, Canada banned it outright. The U.S. pulled back too, and lawsuits followed. But for years, no one thought to check behind the walls. Turns out, sometimes the most dangerous thing in your house is the one you can't even see.
Crispy, juicy chicken with all the fixins. With Swanson, you choose dark meat or white meat dinners. You get just what you want.
Microwave dinners, the future of food that now feels like a mistake. You remember peeling back the plastic film, the little compartments, the mashed potatoes in one square, the brownie in another, the Salisbury steak bubbling in mystery gravy. It was futuristic, convenient, a full meal in 5 minutes flat. Microwave dinners felt like freedom. No pans, no cleanup, no waiting. You'd hear that high-pitched ding, grab the steaming tray, and plant yourself in front of the TV. Dinner and Wheel of Fortune, perfection. But what you didn't realize back then, that meal was a science project in disguise, packed with sodium, preservatives, artificial flavors, and just enough calories to keep you full without ever feeling fed. The plastic trays sometimes leached chemicals. The nutrition labels read like chemistry exams. MTV, body image pressures. When music got a mirror, and you didn't like what you saw when MTV hit in the 80s, it wasn't just sound anymore. It was looks. Big hair, perfect skin, rock stars in leather pants doing slow-motion spins on yachts. It felt cool until it didn't. You started comparing. Your hair wasn't like theirs. Your body didn't move like that. Before MTV, music lived in your ears. Now it lived in the mirror. Kids, especially girls, watched hours of glam and perfection. Eating disorders went up. So did gym memberships and body anxiety. We didn't call it image pressure. We called it just watching videos. But looking back, that screen shaped more than just taste. It shaped how we saw ourselves and what we thought we had to become. Atari and early video game addiction. One joystick, and suddenly you're gone for hours. Atari felt harmless. Just a joystick and a pixelated screen. Pong, Frogger, Space Invaders. But it had something we'd never seen before. A loop. You didn't want to win. You wanted one more try. Homework got skipped. Dinner got cold. Your eyes stayed glued to that flashing screen. And before long, your mom was saying, "Turn that thing off already." It wasn't about graphics. It was the grip. Atari made TV interactive. And once it had your attention, Agent Orange, Vietnam Legacy, the war chemical that followed families home. It wasn't just a battlefield story. Agent Orange made it all the way home. You remember hearing whispers. A friend's dad had health issues. A cousin came back from Vietnam and started getting sick. It was supposed to kill jungle cover. What it actually did? Cause cancer, birth defects, and lifelong trauma for soldiers and their kids. Even today, some veterans are still fighting for care.
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Parents who use drugs have children who use drugs.
Thalidomide, the pill that changed how we trust medicine. In the late 50s and early 60s, doctors handed it out like candy, a safe pill for nausea during pregnancy. But thalidomide caused thousands of babies to be born with severe limb deformities, arms like fins, legs that never fully formed. It was supposed to help. Instead, it became one of the darkest chapters in modern medicine. By the 80s, it was long gone from pharmacy shelves, but the people it affected were still living with the scars. Asbestos in the home, the danger that lived in your ceiling tiles. You didn't see it, you didn't smell it, but it was probably in your attic, your school, your popcorn ceiling. Asbestos was fireproof, cheap, and everywhere. It felt like a safety feature until it started killing people. Tiny airborne fibers that could stay in your lungs for decades, causing cancer, causing lawsuits, causing families to question the walls around them. We didn't think of these things as dangerous. We thought they were normal, fun, convenient, just part of growing up in a world that hadn't figured it all out yet. But looking back now, it's kind of a miracle we made it through. So here's to scraped knees, sketchy toys, and lessons learned the hard way. The wild, weird, and sometimes risky world of the 80s, because danger might have been in the air, the food, and the toys, but so was a whole lot of life.